Hello, am I audible? Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you please start the show now program.
Okay. Good evening to all and all. Myself, Dr. Navnita Pal, Research Scientist, Department of Oceanography, Techno University, West Bengal. And I will be your host for this session on building on innovation product fit for market. It is my great pleasure and honor to be amongst these eminent personalities. Today is the second day webinar series. I would like to warm welcome to our eminent dignitaries, invited speakers, panelists, dear my collegians, my students, ladies and gentlemen present today for the session on building an innovation product fit for market in Zoom platform on behalf of Techno India University, West Bengal. Yesterday has been extremely satisfying with such wonderful speeches from our invited speakers and sincere participation from young and enthusiastic mind like you all. Therefore, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the attendees on behalf of Techno India University West Bengal for being such an amazing audience. Now, I would like to call upon our very own Dr. Sophia Zaman ma'am, HOD, Department of Oceanography, to deliver the welcome address and inauguration speech. Now, over to you, ma'am.
Yes, hello, good evening, everyone. So, hope all of you are keeping fine and fit. And today we are having the second event on IIC, that is on the innovation of the product building and your building of product in the fit for market. Now, when we develop some products and any innovative products, we have to marketize that, we have to sell out that, because it has to be made on a larger scale. So from a small scale, whatever we prepare through our research, through our techniques, this has to be patented, this has to be legalized in a framework, proper guideline. So all these things we'll be hearing from our very own professor, Dr. Shambhu Prasad Chakravarti. He is from the West Bengal National University of Juridical Sciences. And we will also learn from our research scientists that how he has developed some product and how he will be able to find out the new avenues for patenting the products which we are developing from our department, our university. So all these good talks we'll be hearing from our two different speakers today. And along with that, we are having our very own Professor Helena, madam, who will be giving an insight into the today's program, that what is the importance of such IIC event based on innovation and product fit for marketing. So hope all of you will enjoy these two sessions and learn from it, that whenever we are trying to developing some product and how to channelize it through proper guidelines, to proper ways into the markets, and we have to reach to the larger scale. So over to you, Dr. Pal, Navnita Pal. Please carry on, and you call upon our the next speaker.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your motivating us with your words of wisdom. Now, I would like to call upon Professor Helena Sengupta, HOD Department of Civil Engineering, Techno University, West Bengal, to say something, ma'am, about this event. Over to you, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to today's session. Yesterday, I had spoken about what is basically why they are required. These sessions are important and how IIC has been helping these things to be conducted. Now, basically, whatever you are learning from here, you are developing and understanding. So these require, we have twofold things into it. One, that you yourself get developed into an entrepreneur and build a business of your own or startup of your own, or maybe you develop certain techniques of yours and you help the people all around you to develop something. So either you get mentored or you mentored someone else. Now, the purpose of a mentor is basically to help you excel in your career and become the best version of yourself. This may involve helping you achieve your goals, introducing you to new ways of thinking, challenging your limiting assumptions, and teaching you life lessons and much more. So, and as I said, that maybe like yesterday, we learned so many things from the two speakers, and there we understood their experiences, wherein they have helped others to get a better product into the market. Today, we would be learning similar things from other two speakers today. And in this mentoring sessions, basically what is being provided is you get motivation, you get advice, you get or give. If you're wanting to be a mentor, then you are giving to the others. So in a mentoring, there is motivation, there's advice, there's success, there's a direction, there's a coaching, you get support, there's a goal, and there's a training. So all things goes hand to hand. And today we learn from others. We'll have their versions and their views and the learnings of their life, what they want to give us today. And I would request all of you to catch up important points from their learning so that you can inculcate the same in your own way to get into entrepreneurship or to help others get into entrepreneurship. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your kind words. Now, before going to the session on building on an innovation product fit for market, I would like to request all the panelists, please switch on your video mode so that I can take a screenshot for official purposes. Now I think it's over. It's time for today's session on building an innovation product fit for market. It is my great privilege to invite our distinguished speaker, Dr. Shambhu Prasad Chakraborty, to deliver his speech. Dr. Shambhu Prasad Chakraborty is currently the head and research fellow at the Center for Regulatory Studies, Governance and Public Policy, the West Bengal National University of Juridical Sciences, Kolkata, India. He is the chief editor of NUJ's Journal of Regulatory Studies. His area of his research is tribal and indigenous rights, climate change, intellectual property rights, and technology law. He was authored 4 books, 30 articles, and books chaptered in Scopus Index and care-listed journals, and presented research papers in more than 50 national and international conferences and webinars. He has been invited as a resource person in more than 30 national and international events and has been a WIPO Fellow in 2019. He was awarded with gold medal for winning Youth Parliament competition by the Government of West Bengal, India. He taught his school at +2 level and college in his LLB degree and taught the University of Calcutta in his 4th year. He was conferred to PhD degree in law from North Bengal University in 2017 with more than 14 years of teaching and research experience. Dr. Chakraborty is also a member of the prestigious Law and Society Association, USA, and Commonwealth Lawyer Association, London. So, I welcome Dr. Shambhu Prasad Chakraborty to deliver his speech. Over to you, sir.
Well, thank you so much, Navnita, for that wonderful introduction. But before I move on with today's talk, I would like to know exactly, who are listening to this particular session. Are they all students, or there's a mixture of students and faculties? Can Navnita tell me?
I think most of them are students and they are research scholars are too present in today's talk.
Okay.
And they are doing some researches on their part, and they are part of BTech students. Some law students are also there, and our own scientific domain students are also there. So basically, student group and research scientist group, research scholar group.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Professor Zaman, for that briefing. I would imagine that majority of the people who are here to have a brief understanding on how their products are marketed, how their products can be the subject matter of a good business proposition, or how they can really patent something, an invention, perhaps. Is this exactly what the audience is looking forward to, Professor Zaman?
Yes, they are actually looking for how to promotize the product when they are developing some model. Means in a preliminary stage, developing some model. Basically, this model has to be promotized in the marketing sector or in the business sector. So how will they start up their own business, and what are the laws and the guidelines and the frameworks for starting something new, something good for them? That is the thing.
Okay, yeah. This is essential, Professor Zaman, to make this understanding and this time that we are all spending together more relevant for all of us. The first and foremost thing that I would like to say to the young people who are listening to this particular talk is that we have a presumption, and the presumption is that everyone knows the law, because just in case anyone commits a violation, the law enforcement agencies comes up and immediately encroach, irrespective of the fact that that particular effort on the part of that individual is completely bona fide, was perfectly without a wrongful intent. But then again, the law comes in and the law tries to say that, well, you have not done things right. So it's very essential, I think, for everybody to understand that this presumption exists, that as soon as you cross the age of 18 years, you are aware of perhaps all the laws in the world. And more so when you are making a product for the people, for the market to consume and explore. And you're also enjoying some profit out of your efforts, your inventions. Now, I would broadly discuss in the next 10-15 minutes the topic from two broad parameters. One, understanding the basics, of patent law and patenting, and number two, understanding the entire discussion on the basis of a concept which is known as the law of tort. Now, why I am telling this to you is because a law of tort is the basis of all civil litigation and civil wrongs. So it's important for everybody to understand this. Now, suppose one of your colleague makes an invention which is really very good, and it is related to some sort of maybe a cookie, maybe something which you can add to a cookie or to a bread or to a food product, and you can improve the protein compliance of that particular product, and that might be really, really new, really good, really novel, and it has some sort of commercial value. Suppose you've done that, and for that, what you did, you actually made those products, and you found out that well, very good. Of making more and more honest effort, you made those cookies, and you start a little small startup business, and you start those things are being sold in the market. But suddenly, what happens? Someone comes up to you one day and tells that, well, you're selling those things. Do you have a license to sell? Well, do you have the food that you're selling is tested that it is perfectly fine, and you have given this particular report to the agencies of the government, name registered in certain forums. All these questions comes up to you, and you say that, well, I knew all these. To be very honest, you will be given a punishment, and this punishment can range to a financial liability of around 2 lakh rupees, or you can even go to jail. Just imagine, how suddenly a young guy who has devoted his life in science and created certain things, which is really something which is changing the life of poor people, of common people, he's now being arrested. He is now behind bars. Now, the reason behind this is the lack of knowledge of law. And that is exactly where, young people like you who are listening to this particular program needs to understand. I will now discuss a very interesting case which will help you to understand a very interesting legal concept. I'll talk about that legal concept after I discuss this very simple case. A young couple, one day, they were roaming around, and this is in the backdrop of England. So they entered into an inn, okay? And once they entered into that inn, the couple sat on a small table, and they ordered beer, okay? And the waiter came up to the desk with that beer bottle and two, glass, to drink according to their wish, whoever wished to have more and whoever wished to have less. So the name of this lady was Donahue, and she was with her husband. So her husband poured that beer in the glass of the wife and give it to her, and took the second portion, and they were having a good time and they were enjoying that beer. Now, as they are over with their first serving, the husband poured the last part of the thing on the glass of Mrs. Donahue. And they noticed that something which is not really a liquid, it dropped inside that glass, okay? So, and suddenly they were trying to notice exactly what that was. And when they took the glass and looked into it, and they found that there is a dead snail or something like that, a dead snail, and there was a pungent smell coming out from that. Now, Mrs. Donahue, after experiencing this thing, fell very and well, the facts are not very clear as to whether she was ill because of the intoxication caused by that snail, or it was some nausea which came up because of the psychological attack that she had, but actually, she was ill and she was admitted to the hospital. So once this happened, she and her husband filed a complaint against the owner of that inn. Okay, and when the notice was served on this owner of this inn, he came to the court and he said the court that, see, the bottle that I gave her to drink was an opaque bottle. You know what is an opaque bottle? Well, many of you people know this. Opaque is something which do not pass the light. There can be transparent, there can be translucent, there can be opaque. Like the glass that I'm using is a transparent one. There can be glasses which are translucent, where you cannot see exactly what's on the other side, but you can see the light passing through that particular thing. But this glass, bottle of beer, was opaque. And the owner of that inn said, under no circumstances it was possible for me to see what was inside that opaque bottle. And it is not possible for me to open every bottle and see exactly what is inside and then serve to the people. And if I keep on doing that, if I open this, what will actually happen is that no one would buy it later on because, because it's aerated and it's alcoholic. So people will not buy it. Now, the court was more or less satisfied. And then the court asked the manufacturer of that bottle to come before it. So the manufacturer came up, and in his defense, the manufacturer said, see, my lord, I don't even know these couples. I have not sold this bottle to the couple. Then how can I be liable to what has happened to these people? The court, however, did not agree to that defense of privity to contract, because the jurors say that if I'm liable to the inn owners, but not to those people. But the court did not pay heed to this particular defense. And the court said in very clear terms that the manufacturer was the last person who would have been taken care of this particular thing and could have averted this particular problem. And from that particular case, which is known as Johnny versus Stevenson, the concept of negligence came up. And in this very famous case, the court defined negligence, the word negligence, which we use at a very common parlance, we keep on telling whenever, suppose there is a disaster, we say that who's negligent to, because it's important to identify who is negligent to determine who would pay for the loss, okay, that has been caused by that particular disaster or damage. Now, coming back to the principle that was laid down by the court said that there are three things you need to understand. Number one, that who is having the duty, because it's very important to identify who has the actual onus, who has the actual duty to take care. And the second point to say is that there is a breach of duty. For every case of negligence, you need to prove that there is not only a duty on the part of a particular person, but there is a breach of that particular duty. And because of that breach, number three, somebody has suffered some sort of a loss. So there is a damage according to the court. So there are three things. There is a duty, there is a breach of that duty, and number three, somebody has suffered some sort of a loss or damage. So if all these three things exist, then the person is negligent, okay? Now let's come back to this inventor who has created a cookie out of certain things, maybe certain nice things, and trying to serve the society, especially the unprivileged and the poor. What happens is that why he was arrested, why he has been slapped with a fine of 2 lakh rupees under the law. He was doing everything on good faith. See, he has the duty. Again, coming back to the first proposition that I said, that everyone should know the law. This is the presumption. When you're above 18, the presumption is that you know the law, okay? And there is a Latin, phrase which states that ignorantia juris non excusat, which means that ignorance of law is not an excuse. Ignorantia juris. Ignorantia means ignorance, juris means law, non means not, excusat means excuse. That's a Latin phrase. And ignorantia juris non excusat means if you're saying that I don't know, I did a mistake, I have no idea about the law will not leave you alone. Law will take you and put you behind bars. So if we take all these principles together, the duty lie on that particular inventor as to what are the basic things that he needs to do, that he needs to comply before he put it up in the market, before he put it up for sale, before he starts looking into various things. Now, this is a case of an innocent person, innocent inventor who is trying to do good for the society. It can happen that some of the people who are listening to this discussion may think that this is a case of an unfortunate inventor because he has done things on good faith. But as a matter of fact, the law do not know exactly what is the person thinking behind doing a particular thing. Because there can be people with similar like products, but with wrongful intent, but with bad objectives in their mind. So in certain cases, what you have to do is that the law needs to be neutral to whether a person is having a bad faith or a person who's having a good faith. So the law is neutral as to all these two aspects and only checks into certain standards that has been laid down. And these standards that has been created by law, let me tell you, my dear listeners, is that they never came up out of one law making by the legislators. They have actually come up with the passage of time, and they have developed with the passage of time. And I can give you a couple of examples, like, the concept of the Food Adulteration Act is there. This act came up. See, all enactments in our country has come up because of a problem in the existing legal system. And the problem of the existing legal system was that it was inadequate to resolve the crisis. So that means the society needs a law, needs a regulation. That is exactly why the law comes in. Okay, so this is a very important thing that all the people here should know, that law do not come up out of the sudden with the apprehension that these things can come up. Law actually come up after a disaster happens, because we have seen a lot of examples of such, and I think all of you are aware of it. And coming down to product making, marketing it, the first thing I would advise to my young professionals who are listening to this dialogue is that you need to be careful about your own interest, the interest of the civic society, the interest of the people, the consumers, the people who are your prospective purchasers. Now, the example that I gave and was trying to analyze it from various perceptions was only from an illustratory perspective. There can be productions of many other products, not only something which relates to food, but which can relate to medicine, which can relate to many other things, okay? So the first and foremost thing that I would appreciate amongst the listeners who are listening to this particular deliberation is to know exactly in which category that particular product falls and what are the various laws that are guiding that particular thing. Like say, for example, what are the raw materials they're putting in to make that particular product? I'll give an example. If that particular product that you're putting in is say, for example, milk, or say, for example, coal, or say, for example, petroleum, say, for example, alcohol, there are many separate legislation that comes up. There are many separate rules and regulation that comes up, because you simply cannot use all these things without the proper permission, with the prior license from a certain regulatory authorities and bodies. So it's always important that you understand the relevance of law in identifying your best foot forward, because it's very important that you know exactly what the law is. Because I've just given one example of raw materials. Let's say, for example, there are many ingredients, that cannot be given in a food product. Okay, and your invention, if you're trying to put that particular thing which you think is a sine qua non means something which you cannot do without, and you put that particular thing, and that is something which is violative of the law, then again you're on a wrong foot, and again you'll be penalized, and you'll be taken wrongly by the law. Coming down to the composition of that particular product, the composition, the things that you're making it, what are the various things that you're putting in that particular invention, the composition. There are certain standards, like if it is a food product, there are certain food additives that we use. Okay, so now these food additives have certain basic legal rules and provisions that has to comply with. There are questions of hygiene, how you're maintaining hygiene. How do you really analyze how long this particular food is going to be safe for consumption if it is inside this type of a packaging? There is another standard, there are certain certified trademarks that's available, which you need to take for those products to be used. Now, with the passage of time, today we can see food can be taken to space, and they stay there in space for months and years without a problem. Now, this is basically because of the progress of biotechnology, and there are certain patents. There are certain other technologies like nanotechnology, which is also regularly used when it comes to packaging of food and other products for a considerable span of time. Now, barring hygiene, there are other standards like labeling. What are the things that should be there on the top of that particular thing? It's not really that particular cookie or that particular chocolate that you're selling. It's about all other things that has to be taken care of. You have to use a certain language like English and Hindi if you're selling the product in India. You have to mention the place of origin, the goods that they're inside, what are the composition that you have used, everything you have to mention. So there are many things, my dear friends, which is beyond the realm of the scientific invention that you people are doing. It's important that India rise to this particular occasion and start having separate departments inside the university itself who can give these support to those scientists so that there can be a good collaboration and they can move forward. But till then, I would suggest all the people who are planning to move into these type of endeavor to take active support from people who are working in this area, like the advocates, the lawyers who assist you in this regard. and guide you into what licenses that you need to do, how you're going to protect your product. Do you need trade secret to protect your product, or do you need patenting to protect your product? I'll just give an example, like, what is the difference between trade secret and patenting? See, a patent is basically for a small span of time. Under the WIPO rules and regulations, like, the patent period is 20 years. So after this 20 years time, the thing goes to the people at large. So anyone can use it. So your monopoly over that particular product is gone. So if you want to keep your thing with you forever and still carry on with the business, then patenting is not the right solution. So what is the right solution? So the right solution is another intellectual property, which is known as protection in the form of trade secrets. Now, I'll give an example of this. Say, for instance, Coca-Cola or Pepsi, their formula, their thing, they're using this not only for 20 years, but they're using that for quite a long period of time, perhaps even more than 1 century. So how they're protecting their product from being sold or to be used openly by the people at large. And that's exactly where the trade secrets come up. So I think, I've given you a little briefing as to what are the various things that you need to work on during this particular time. And remember, FSSAI Act is there, which came up in the year 2006, which deals with the marketing, the things, various aspects of food production, processing. All these guidelines are there. Later on in the year 2011, the regulations have been amended. And very recently in 2020, also there are some amendments to these provisions. And all young people up here, you people need to know the law, because as I said at the very inception, and this is also my last line, the law is very clear. Ignorantia juris non excusa. That means ignorance of law is non excuse. So whatever you do, you have to be aware of the law. And for that, I think you need to take the advice of people who are aware of the laws, and you need active support from them, either institution-wise or independently. So I think I'll rest my talk for the day here. I hope you people have understood about the relevance of law and how you can take the help of law and moving on with your endeavor, whether it's in the form of a small-scale development or in the form of a large-scale business, or you want to be joining a company where you want to sell your product accordingly, or you want to be a CEO of your own company, you want to have a startup with a little bit of money from here and there. Whatever you do, whatever measures you take, you have to spend around 20% of your time of all that you're spending for this particular business on the legal aspects and the compliance aspects. It's very, very important. And I suggest that you don't be trapped by the legal challenges that are always there. I hope I made sense with all the people. And here I thank everyone for giving me a patient hearing. Just in case you have any question, you're free to ask me once your madam allows that. Thank you from here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Chakravarti, for your insights.
You're welcome.
May I request Dr. Pal to continue the session, please? The next speaker, she has to call upon.
Navanita, you're muted. Navanita, you're muted.
No, Dr. Nobonita, you are muted. You unmute yourself, please.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Yes, yes.
Okay, ma'am.
Please carry on.
Now, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Chakraborty, for the for delivering such an inspiring lecture. I hope our audience has thoroughly enjoyed your talk. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Now, it's time for the next speaker for the session on building an innovation product fit for market. I'm glad to invite Dr. Pritam Mukherjee to deliver his speech. Now, Dr. Pritam Mukherjee is currently working as a research scientist in the Department of Oceanography, Technical University, West Bengal. After obtaining his bachelor and master degree in microbiology from Bangalore University, Dr. Mukherjee joined this. Hello, am I audible? Hello, am I audible? Hello.
Yes, you're audible. You're audible.
Yes, audible. Yes. Dr. Mukherjee joined Wesleyan University as a graduate student and teaching assistant in the Department of Molecular Biology and Biochemistry in 2009 and earned his second master degree in Molecular Biology and Biochemistry in 2014. He obtained his PhD in Biotechnology from Techno University, West Bengal, Department of Biotechnology in 2018. He has in his credit 10 international publications, including both research and review articles in SCI Journal, 5 book chapters, and several other national publications as research articles and conference proceedings in UGC recognized Tier-list journal. Dr. Mukherjee has been actively working on the mangrove rhizosphere microbiota of Indian Sundarbans since 2006. He has screened and isolated several halophytic, leucalotolerant strains from 2 mangroves and mangrove-associated species and investigated their roles in heavy metals bioremediation, osmoregulation, and growth promotion of salt-tolerant crops like oral sativa, bioactive compounds associated with anabiotic stress elevations in vitro, and in vivo use biological and biochemical, biophysical, molecular, and bioinformatic techniques. So, I welcome Dr. Pritam Mukherjee to deliver his talk. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Paul, for your nice introduction. First, of this webinar. Am I audible, ma'am?
You're audible, Dr. Pritam. You please carry on. Okay. Yes, you're audible.
So, first, I'd like to thank the organizer to present my research in this platform. So, talking about the research entitled An Overview on Research on Mangrove-Based Herbal Hand Sanitizer. So, but before I go deep into the topic, I would like to give you a brief overview of the background and significance of the research work. So as we all know that we are amidst a pandemic, rather COVID-19 pandemic, which is caused by SARS-CoV-2, or commonly known as the coronavirus. And since last year, we have been hearing few preventive measures that in order to prevent the transmission of this disease from one person to another. And those preventive measures being wearing of masks, maintaining social distancing measures, washing your hands, and also to get vaccinated, right? But the most important thing is the washing of hands, because even though you are at your home, one wash their hands. Why? Because washing hands with soap or detergent or alcohol is necessary. Now, the reason being that if you look closely at the structure of this virus that I'm showing in this slide on, and the image being on the left corner of the slide, you can see that this particular virus, the coronavirus, has few components. It has a nucleocapsid, which is made up of the RNA and the proteins, and also it has a lipid bilayer onto several proteins, or the spike proteins, the membrane proteins, the envelope proteins are being attached onto. But one key player in the disease transmission or the infection is the spike protein, also embedded on lipid bilayer. And as we all know that soap, detergents, or alcohol, this can help in solubilizing the lipid bilayer, thereby dismantling the spike proteins by dissolving the lipid bilayer, and therefore the spike proteins will fall apart and the virus will be rendered inactive, meaning it can no longer infect another person. But now the question arises, why we are focusing on hand sanitizers and why not soap and water when it is claimed to be the better alternative? Because according to CDC, using of soap is a better alternative because it can kill more microbes compared to hand sanitizers. But using of soap and water has a problem. Why? Because just imagine yourself in a work environment and you are inside a meeting, important meeting. It's not always possible for you to go to the restroom and get access to soap and water to clean your hands. But if in such a setting, if you carry a bottle of hand sanitizer in your pocket, you can grab that hand sanitizer and clean your hands, right? And also just imagine if you're traveling, it's not always possible to get access to soap and water. Therefore, hand sanitizers always come in handy in such instances. So here are the basic, the general composition of commercial hand sanitizers that we often see in the commercial bottles that we buy. So the basic ingredients being the emollients, the polyacrylate, the base, colors and fragrance, water, as well as the alcohol, which is a major ingredient. Now let's check what each of these ingredients do. So the emollients protect the skin from alcohol's drying effects, whereas the polyacrylate makes a gel with water. The base neutralizes the polyacrylate's acidic effects, and the color and fragrance give the sanitizer its appearance and smell, the pleasant smell that you get from hand sanitizer. Water acts as a carrier for the ingredients and part of the hydrogel. And alcohol, as I mentioned earlier, that it breaks apart the lipid-based coatings of some bacteria and viruses, thereby destroying them. And clearly, as you can see in the last point that I have made, that these alcohol-based hand sanitizers not only help to kill viruses, but also they are good in inhibiting or killing bacteria and other microbes like the fungus. So when we talked about the good effects, the benefits of using hand sanitizers, we also should look at the adverse impacts what a hand sanitizer can cause. So here are a few images from where you can see the hidden threat which is lurking behind the alcohol sanitizers in this COVID-19 outbreak. Because we have heard about the hand sanitizers long back, right? We have been using hand sanitizers since long, but have we ever used hand sanitizer this frequently? No. We are only using these using soaps and hand sanitizers as frequently as in this pandemic, never before, right? So here are a few of the images of people's hands where you can see that there are black patches developed on the skin, dried and flaky skins, skin rashes and skin allergies, which all have developed due to the prolonged and continuous usage of hand sanitizers, both indoor and outdoor setting, right? So therefore, there is an immediate need for an alternative form of hand sanitizer, or at least to avoid the chemicals that are being used, the inorganic and the organic chemicals that are being used in the commercially available hand sanitizers, or rather to balance the adverse effect of these inorganic and organic chemicals with some herbal alternatives in order to add or in order to increase the efficacy and of these hand sanitizers, and also to provide additional protectiveness to the skin. So with this, the current objectives of the research study are First, to determine the current status of the common medicinal mangrove plant diversity in the deltaic complex of Indian Sundarbans and their applications as baseline information of ground reality. And also, to develop a mangrove-based herbal hand sanitizer from endemic plants with antimicrobial property and assess its efficacy, which can open a new avenue for alternative livelihood in the COVID-19 and post-COVID-19 period. So as we all know that the Indian Sundarbans is one of the most biologically productive and taxonomically diverse mangrove ecosystem in the Indian subcontinent with highly dynamic physicochemical parameters. And the Indian Sundarbans, as you can see in this image, sustain 34 species of true mangrove floral plants, among which members of the Avicenniaceae family is one of the most dominant. And on the extreme right is an image of Avicennia marina, which is a member of this Avicenniaceae family. So these are the plants which are the most dominant in the mangrove ecosystem of Indian Sundarbans, and they can thrive in varied conditions of aquatic salinity. Because as you know that the Indian Sundarban being in the brackish water setting, it has a lot of salinity in its water. The brackish water contains a lot of salt in it. So the mangrove need to thrive in these salt conditions. So the Avicennia marina is one plant which can thrive under low to high salt concentrations. And therefore it is the most dominant. So the mangrove plants, widely distributed at the land-sea interface, have the potential to provide several regulatory services, including carbon sequestration, bioremediation, etc. Moreover, the medicinal value of mangroves is an untapped area in the scientific domain. Although people have looked into the regulatory service like the carbon sequestration, bioremediation, and other properties, but people haven't looked at the medicinal values of these mangroves much. Therefore, it remained an untapped area, right? So the medicinal values of these common mangroves of Indian Sundarbans are highlighted in this lecture, which can be blended with the preparation of mangrove-based herbal hand sanitizer, keeping the COVID-19 and post-COVID-19 scenario in mind. So let's look at some of the common medicinal mangrove flora of Indian Sundarbans. So first is the Heritiera forms, which is commonly known as Sundari. And if you know that the name Sundarbans came from this word Sundari, because these trees were once very dominant in the Indian Sundarbans, but now because of the increase in salinity, these plants are at the verge of extinction. But if you look at the medicinal properties of this plant, we can see that it has antiviral property, it has antibacterial property, also it has anti-carcinogenic property. But because the Sundari plants or the Heritiera forms are becoming extinct and it is now termed as an endangered species, we cannot work much, we cannot carry out our research on this particular plant because it is not allowed to collect Sundari plant samples from the Indian Sundarbans. Therefore, we have shifted focus to the most dominant species, which are the members of the Avicenniaceae family. And here I'll show you three dominant members of the Avicenniaceae family. The first one being Avicennia alba, which is commonly known as calobine. And if you look at the medicinal values of this particular plant, you can see that the paste prepared from seeds help to relieve smallpox ulceration. The wood ash after burning wood is given in dysentery. The plant extract is used to cure snake bites. Next, we will look at the Avicennia marina, which is commonly known as the piarabine. The bark decoction applied on hajar, in Bengali it is called hajar. It is a kind of a sore on the skin, which is caused due to wet sand. And the bark decoction is used for curing of such sores. The paste prepared from seeds also help to relieve smallpox ulceration, and the resinous exudates are used for birth control purposes. The last member of this particular family is the Avicennia officinalis, which is commonly known as shadabine. The medicinal values include ash obtained after burning the dried bark is used as antacid. The paste of green raw fruits is applied to cure boils and skin diseases. It is also used to cure hepatitis. So if you look at the medicinal properties of these three members, three Avicennia species, one thing you must have noticed that all of these plant extracts are good in curing skin problems, right? So definitely they can be used as a formulation for the hand sanitizers. So now we will now take a look at the medical significance of some of the essential phytochemicals which are derived from mangrove plant parts. Because what is imparting a particular medicinal property to a plant are basically the phytochemicals which are present either in their leaves, stems, or roots, which are the vegetative parts of a plant. So if you look at the different phytochemicals which can be present in such mangrove plant parts are the saponins, the polyphenols, the glycosides, the alkaloids, the tannins, and the flavonoids. And here on the extreme right are a few of the medicinal properties of these plants. But for today's talk, I would only focus on the anti-ulcer, anti-aging, anti-allergic, antimicrobial, antioxidant, and anti-inflammatory properties. So here are the names, chemical structure, and description and references of few of the commonly available phytochemicals derived from the Avicennia species. The first one is a complex polysaccharides. So as you can see in this image, it is a really complex structure of a polysaccharide molecule, which can be isolated from Avicennia alba. And the biological activity it imparts are antimicrobial, antiviral, and anti-proliferative properties, among others. The second one is rutin, which is a very complex structure in itself, is found in Avicennia marina, among other mangrove plants. And the biological activity it imparts are also antimicrobial and antiviral, among others. The last one is quercetin. The structure is pretty simple compared to the previous two. It is also found in Avicennia marina, among other mangrove plants. And the biological activity it imparts are antibacterial, antifungal, antimycobacterial, antiretroviral, antimalarial, and antiviral. So as you can see that all of these important phytochemicals derived from the Avicennia species has several antimicrobial properties and also antiviral properties. So these can be good agents for a hand sanitizer formulation. So here I'm showing you a workflow of the experimental design. So first, to start our experiments, we collected several of these mangrove plants, the Avicennia marina, Avicennia alba, and Avicennia officinalis from the Indian Sundarban region. Then we segregated the stems and leaves. We did not consider roots for this particular study. We have only focused on the stems and the leaves. So we segregated the stems and the leaves. We have washed them, dried them, and kept in plastic bags. Then using a mortar and pestle, we have crushed the dried stems and leaves into a fine powder, and then extracted the phytochemicals using a solvent called as N-hexane, either using continuous shaking or a oxalate has been used. Then the plant extract was filtered to make it a more pure extract. And then the extracts were stored in Eppendorfs at -20°C until further use. And basically the main focus for this experiment were three things. We looked at three important aspects. The first, the essential phytochemical profiling of these organic solvent extracts of the mangrove plant parts were done. Second, testing of the antibacterial screening was carried out using a disc diffusion assay. And thirdly, testing of the antioxidant property of these mangrove extracts by DPPH radical scavenging assay was done. And finally, once all these aspects were checked, we used these solvent extracts for formulation of herbal hand sanitizer. So here I'm showing you a table where the phytochemical profiling of the Avicennia stem and leaf extracts were done. And as you can see, we have used the Avicennia marina stem AMS, Avicennia marina leaf, AML, Avicennia alba stem, AAS, Avicennia alba leaves, AAL, and Avicennia officinalis leaf, AOL. So we have tested against the several phytochemicals such as the cardiac glycosides, saponins, terpenoids, tannins, proteins and xanthoproteins, alkaloids, flavonoids, reducing sugars, steroids, acidic compounds, etc. And here are the names of the test, which was the biochemical test, which was carried out in the lab. Then if there is a positive observation, the phenotype is also listed, how it would have looked. We have used a negative control, which is the N-hexane, that is the solvent itself without the phytochemicals, whereas several other positive control like the Arjuna bark in N-hexane or the neem leaf in N-hexane were used. And as you can see that compared to the Avicennia alba stem and Avicennia alba leaves, the Avicennia marina stem and Avicennia marina leaves showed the presence of most of the phytochemicals, except for alkaloids and reducing sugars. Whereas the Avicennia officinalis leaves were used also as a control in this experiment, because the main focus was given to the Avicennia marina and Avicennia alba vegetative parts for this particular study. So having checked the having checked the phytochemical profile of these vegetative extracts, the next focus was to check the antibacterial activity of these particular solvent tissue extracts, right? So, but to do so, we needed some clinical pathogens from some hospitals. So we, in collaboration with the KPC hospital in South Calcutta, we obtained 3 clinical pathogenic bacterial strains, namely the Staphylococcus aureus, Proteus vulgaris, and Salmonella typhi. And we have used these strains to test against the antimicrobial properties of the solvent extracts. But to do so, we first needed to validate whether these clinical pathogens, although they're pathogenic in nature, we wanted it to be multi-drug resistant strains, because these are the strains which are hard to deal with. So to do that, in collaboration with KPC Hospital, we have tested these three clinical pathogenic strains against a battery of clinically relevant antibiotics, and to test whether these microbes are resistant against these antibiotics. So we have used 22 different antibiotics. Few common names which you might associate with are amikamycin, gentamicin, tetracycline. You have the ampicillin, chloramphenicol, penicillin, streptomycin, etc. And here are the concentrations of each of these antibiotics used. And if you look, we have checked the inhibition zone diameter for each of these antibiotics against these microbes, right? So what we have seen that in most of the cases, if the zone diameter is 0, that means if there is no zone of inhibition, then we would ascribe that particular antibiotic to be resistant, ascribe that particular microbe to be resistant against that particular antibiotic. So if the zone diameter is between 4.5 to 5, we would ascribe that microbe to be sensitive for that particular antibiotic. And if it is in between, then it would be referred to as an intermediate effect, right? So as you can see, for all these 3 microbes, we have seen that at least these microbes are resistant against more than 5 to 6 antibiotics. And they have shown intermediate effect for many more, and whereas they are also sensitive for few others. But since majority of them are resistant against these antibiotics, we can now call them as a multi-drug resistant variety. So now we can use these microbes for our further study. So after testing their multi-drug resistant properties of these pathogenic bacterial strains, we have used to test the antibacterial profile of the tissue extracts of Avicennia marina and Avicennia alba against these 3 clinical MDR pathogenic bacterial strains. So we have used a disk diffusion assay for this experiment. And on your right is an image of a plate, which is a Muller-Hinton solid agar plate. And as you can see that for this experiment, we have placed sterile filter paper discs on the surface of these plates. So these white spots are the sterile filter paper discs onto which either the solvent, that is N-hexane, was applied, or the solvent along with the tissue extract were applied. Okay, and the plate already contains a lawn of each of these bacterial sample. So these, as you can see, the plate looks opaque. That means the plate has a lawn of this bacterial growth. And once this filter paper disc soaked with either the solvent or the solvent along with the tissue extract was applied, we either saw no zone of inhibition, as was evident in the N-hexane extract, whereas we saw medium to large zone of inhibition when we used Avicennia marina stem or leaf extracts, or Avicennia alba stem or leaf extracts. And in this table, the data has been tabulated. As you can see that for all the tissue extracts, we saw a certain degree of zone of inhibition, whereas the N-hexane, this particular column did not show any zone of inhibition because it was used as a negative control, whereas A and K, A stands for amikamycin and K stands for kanamycin. These are the known antibiotics for gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. And these antibiotics were used as a positive control because these antibiotics were supposed to have an effect on these microbes. But interestingly, what we saw that the antibiotics, the zone of inhibition caused by the antibiotic were much lesser compared to the zone of inhibition caused by these mangrove extracts. So that itself clearly indicates that these mangrove extracts were very much potent in killing these pathogenic microbes. Now, one might question, so why we consider these microbes? What do they do actually? So the potential diseases that are linked with the test pathogenic bacterial strains used are, so Staphylococcus aureus is associated with skin and respiratory infections, also food poisoning. Proteus vulgaris, it is associated with wound infection, urinary tract infections, and Salmonella typhi causes typhoid fever. And if you think about it, like cleaning of one's hand with a hand sanitizer helps to maintain one's personal hygiene. And definitely not only the coronavirus it can prevent, but also it can prevent from other foodborne or other respiratory diseases caused by several microbes. So these three strains are good candidates to start with. So the final thing that we tested is the antioxidant activity of these Avicennia plant extracts. So we used a DPPH free radical scavenging assay. So DPPH is basically 2,2-diphenyl 1-picril dihydrazole compound, which is a free radical basically, and any form of free radical in your body is basically bad. Even free radical in the skin is bad. So antioxidant, which is commonly found in vitamin C or in citrus fruits, the role of these antioxidants is to scavenge these free radicals and lessen the harmful impacts it can cause on humans, right? So we tested whether the mangrove extracts contain or have any antioxidant property, because antioxidant properties again are good for skin regeneration and skin as a skincare, as anti-aging agent, right? So we have done an assay using this DPPH free radical, and this DPPH free radical scavenging assay has a very interesting trait associated with it. So basically the percentage reduction of DPPH is inversely proportional to the absorbance at 570 nanometer, because the experiment you do is with the help of a spectrophotometer, a UV-based spectrophotometer. So less is the absorbance, more is your percentage of reduction, and that is more better, the result is. So for this, we have used T. Arjuna stem as a control, And as our test samples, we used A. marina stems and leaves and A. alba stems and leaves. And as you can see that the absorbance at 517 nanometer was much lesser in case of A. marina stems and leaves, whereas much higher in case of A. alba stems and leaves. What it means basically that A. marina stems and leaves have more percentage reduction of DPPH. That means compared to the A. alba, the A. marina stems are better. So the DPPH radical scavenging assay, which is a direct readout of antioxidant activity, revealed significant reduction of DPPH in case of A. marina vegetative tissue parts as compared to the vegetative tissue parts of A. alba. The order of hierarchy is as follows: A. marina stems, followed by A. marina leaves, followed by A. alba stems, followed by A. alba leaves. The bark extract of T. arjuna was used as a control. So with these three aspects being checked, we can now go for the formulation of our mangrove-based herbal hand sanitizer. And if you look at this table, there are actually two possible hand sanitizer formulations available in the market. One uses ethanol of more than 96%, and the other set uses isopropyl alcohol of 99.8%. Okay. Along with this ethanol or isopropyl alcohol, hand sanitizers also contain glycerin as a lubricating agent, hydrogen peroxide, and also distilled water as mentioned earlier. But for our formulation, we have used isopropyl alcohol instead of ethanol. Okay. And then once the formulation was done, the final formulation was made by adding the concentrates of the solvent extracts of the mangrove plant parts with it. And here is an image of the mangrove-based herbal sanitizers prepared at Techno India University lab. So it was, so on the image on the left, as you can see that we were all geared up in the preparation of these hand sanitizers. Everybody from the lab were helping in the packaging, in the labeling of the bottles in which the hand sanitizers will be poured. And it was done during the first wave of the pandemic. It was requested by our beloved co-chancellor, ma'am, Professor Dr. Manushi Roy Chaudhary, and we were preparing this hand sanitizer. We prepared almost 40 to 50 liters of the hand sanitizer in one day for use within Techno India University for the Techno India University staff members, the housekeeping staff who had to come, the security personnel and other personnel in the Dama hospital who had to come despite the lockdown situation, because they had to be present in the university. So we prepared, that was our small contribution from the Department of Oceanography to the Techno India University. And here on the right hand side is the image of the final packaged bottles, which each contain the herbal hand sanitizer. As you can see, they're properly labeled with the compositions, but it was only used for in-house. It was only made for in-house use and not for commercial point of view. So now coming to the conclusion of my talk, the vegetative plant parts of Avicennia species contain essential phytochemicals including flavonoids, steroids, cardiac glycosides, terpenoids, saponins, tannins, proteins, and xanthoproteins, which have significant medicinal importance. Moreover, the Avicennia marina and Avicennia alba tissue extracts showed significant antioxidant and antibacterial property. The antibacterial activity of Avicennia species could be due to the presence of some of the phytochemicals mentioned above. And finally, formulation of hand sanitizer with mangrove extracts will help to generate new entrepreneurship opportunities. So what are the future perspectives? So what are the societal benefits? So this presentation is basically an attempt to add another feather on the provisioning services provided by the mangroves. Now, conservation of mangroves will not only help curb the carbon from the ambient environment, as we know that mangroves are good carbon sink, but may also restore the traditional medicinal values of these plants, which have not been explored to the fullest, which have been lost in recent times due to the impact of modernization in the islands of this World Heritage Site. Because of rapid urbanization and industrialization, the mangroves of these Indian Sundarbans are being lost. And if there is no proper awareness of the medicinal properties of these mangroves, then people will cut down more mangroves instead of planting more. And then this, all these, novel properties will be lost in future. So, and finally, preparation of this mangrove-based pharmaceutical products, in our case, the herbal hand sanitizers, and evaluation of its success rate may open up an alternative livelihood for the local people of Indian Sundarbans, who are extremely poor, and thereby help to uplift their socio-economic status. So that is the overall goal, that not only these herbal formulations will add to the efficacy of the existing hand sanitizers available in the market. Also, it will provide good care for one's skin and prevent skin allergies and skin rashes, and also skin cancers in the long run, because we don't know how long this pandemic will going to last. And we also have to keep on using these hand sanitizers until this pandemic is over, to keep ourselves safe, keep our family members safe. But at the same time, we also can uplift the socio-economic profile of the poor island dwellers of Indian Sundarbans, and create new opportunities for new generations. So finally, I would like to acknowledge Dr. Abhijit Mitra, Director of Research of Techno India University, West Bengal. As you can see in this image, the person sitting on the chair, Dr. Sufia Zaman, Associate Professor and Head, Department of Oceanography, Techno India University, West Bengal, who is missing in this image, but we all know Dr. Sufia Zaman. She's our very beloved and very own ma'am. And members of Dr. Mitro and Dr. Zaman lab at Techno India University, because all these lab members, it was a group effort, it was a group production, and we did during the first pandemic, we also did during the second wave of the pandemic, and we will be doing to serve Techno India University, and also maybe many more people in our state. And I wish that many more students will come up to take up this venture and move forward the dream of our beloved Chancellor and Co-Chancellor, ma'am. Thank you. I would be happy to answer if you have any questions.
Hello all. So thank you, Dr. Preetham. It was a lovely session. Very nice talk from your end. So Dr. Nabonita, are you there? You must.
Yes,
we
ma'am.
have to
Yes,
wind
ma'am.
up this session. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, Dr. Mukherjee, for delivering such a very inspiring lecture. I hope our audience has thoroughly enjoyed your talk, sir. Now, before going to vote of thanks, I would like to request all the panelists, please switch on your video mode so that I can take a screenshot for official purposes. I think it's over. Now, it's time for the vote of thanks, which will be delivered by our beloved HOD ma'am, Professor Dr. Sufia Zaman, who has been a true motivation and driving force for these wellness studies. So has been a strong pillar of support for all of us. And we hope to get her constant encouragement for our future endeavors as well. So I welcome Dr. Sufia Zaman ma'am to deliver her talk. Over to you, ma'am.
Yes, hello, good evening all again. So we have ended this session with a very nice talk from Dr. Mukherjee. And I would like to thank from the beginning for our university's Chancellor Sir, Co-Chancellor Madam, who gave us this opportunity to perform such beautiful activities and events based on such skills. We are all locked up in home, but we have the opportunity to come face to face online and learn from our different expertises. And we thank, first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Ravi Ranjan sir, who is the president of the cell of IIC Council. And I would like to thank Professor Helena Madam, who has been constant support to us. She gave a beautiful insight of how to motivate our students, how to motivate our faculty members regarding this innovation program. And I would like to thank Dr. Shambhu Prasad Chakravarti sir for giving an insight into the briefing us about the different laws and the guidelines and how to launch a product, what we have to go through the shortfalls and the outcomes of these products in the marketing level, and how to channelize it through a proper way. So it was very nice from you, sir. Thank you very much from your end also. And I would like to thank Dr. Pritam Mukherjee for his lovely, inspiring talk regarding his research. Whatever researches you have done, Pritam, is very excellent. It has to be made on a larger scale, has to be done through proper ways so that we can all get benefits from this. Now it's a COVID time, so we are looking forward to develop some good, well and nice hand sanitizers. And this hand sanitizers will be now made from a larger scale. We are preparing for those type of protocols, and this is a new product launching event from our department in our university. So I'd like to thank Dr. Navonita Pal for beautifully anchoring and moderating this entire show. The 2 days we had covered up, and this is the second day. And I'd like to thank all the panelists in our team, Dr. Prashanjit Pramanik, who has beautifully designed the drafts of the certificates, which the participants will receive very soon as they fill up the feedback form. So the participants are again requested to fill up the feedback links for the yesterday's session and today's sessions too. And they will, once they fill up, you will get 2 certificates for 2 days separately, because these 2 events were 2 different events totally on a different banner. And all the panelists are, again, I thank Dr. Urpita Shah. She also did the coordinating properly. Ms. Rupal Betai for giving us this platform to perform this event on a Zoom network. And Mr. Partha Maulik, who constantly guided us on how to record, how to stick to screenshots and everything. So thank you from again, Dr. Madam Rina Paladhi, Madam. After all, she was not there in these 2 events, but we are all missing her very much enthusiastic words. Ma'am, you're always with us. And above all, Dr. Abhijit Mitra sir, who is out on a trip for field visit, and he will gone to some collection of some samples, water samples in this COVID period, as how to. So we are all in a working phase still, and he is still on his field work. So we will all my regards and well wishes and thanks to everyone who has joined these 2 events. Thank you again. So see you all soon with a new hope of horizon and new innovations and new model developments. Thank you. So back to you, Navangita. You must end the session now. Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for being such a wonderful and enthusiastic audience. Thank you, ma'am, again. Thank you, all of you. Good night. Take care. Stay safe and healthy. Okay.